Beautiful sisters, welcome to this session on the Phoenix Woman Blueprint, how to allow your relationships to nourish you to wholeness. If you are a woman who wants to experience this journey of life through connection, through relationship, and if you would like to learn how you can improve the relationships with yourself, with all aspects with yourself, with your beloveds, with your business, and with others, then you've come to the right place. My name is Cassandra, and I am the co-founder of the Phoenix Women Summit. And for the last 15 years, I have been working with men, women, and couples to help them to create truly co-empowering relationships that actually work and benefit both men and women. I've been working with men separately, teaching them how to understand women and know how to meet them emotionally, physically, how to understand the ways women are and their gifts. And I've been teaching them how to see the incredible beauty that each woman brings to them as an embodiment of the goddess. And what I noticed in the last few years is when I was talking to my sisters, is that whilst the men that I'd spoken to had learned to see and appreciate the beauty and see the goddess in them, what I realized is that most of the sisters I spoke to didn't actually see their own beauty in that way either. And that's when I decided that it's crucial for me to speak to you, beautiful sisters, directly. And my objective is to help you fall in love with yourself, to help you fall in love with yourself as a woman, and to glimpse the incredible, amazing gifts and powers that you hold being in a feminine body. And the path of woman, the path of the feminine, is incredibly powerful, and yet there's a particular natural current of life that when we flow with that, our lives will be, and our relationships will be progressing with ease and grace, and we will feel an alignment, and we will feel connected to ourselves and to others, and we will feel nourished by life. But when we are trying to swim against that stream of our naturalness, that's generally when problems happen. That's when we are working very hard, and it feels like none of the things we create in our lives and none of our relationships really fully serve us and meet us where we are longing to be met. So in this presentation today, I'd like to start with talking about the relationships that we hold with ourselves, but also we talk about this because ultimately every relationship you have in the outside world is a reflection, is a mirror of the relationships you hold with aspects of yourself. It's like, consider yourself in the shamanic tradition we call this a magnetic, attractive thought space, like you're a massive magnet, and you're continuously drawing towards you the people, the experiences, the situations that are designed to help you work through whatever is still stuck or not yet healed inside of you, so that you can assemble yourself as a phoenix woman, as a whole woman, which means a whole woman means that you have access to every single part of yourself, and you can be, you're friends with, you have an intimate connection and a friendly connection with your emotions, with your mind, with your spirit, with your body, with your sexuality, and all of those parts are available to you and integrated, and that's what I would call a whole woman. And let me reassure you that all of us are in progress with this. All of us are women in progress, women who are in this process of becoming, of birthing ourselves in that. And all of us start coming into this world with a particular home place, a particular place of prowess, like something which is a gift of yours. And it's this home place that will be like one of your primary allies, because it's through this home place that we really understand everything around us. So for me, my home place, where I came in with, was the mental. And the mental is, if that's your home place, it means that you have the gift of clarity. You have, you're very, very smart. You tend to try to understand the world around you through logic and making connections and deducing patterns, and you're kind of needing to understand the world and see how it is all connected. And the gift of this place of when the mental is strong, is you have that gift of clarity and discernment, knowing what serves you, what does not serve you, knowing knowing what is right, being able to really get to the very truth of the matter and express that in yourself with that clarity. And then, there's the other home places. Let's say your home place is maybe the emotional. It means that everything in your life you will understand through your emotions. Like, you often likely will feel a lot of emotional ups and downs, a lot of volatility, but your emotions are your greatest teacher. And how you feel and how life touches you and how your emotions are responding to life is actually your teacher, your guidance system. And you will be understanding every other aspect through that. It's a much more kind of in your body experience than if you're kind of understanding things from the mind. And the gift of that emotional place, when that's really assembled, is really the ability to be truly intimate with life and with yourself. Like, this is the place of the true heart connection, of fluidity, of really feeling like you can nourish all of life with your laughter, with your joy, with your beauty. So it's an incredibly beautiful place of intimate connection, this place of the emotional. And then maybe your home place is the physical. And if it's the physical, it means for you, everything, like the way you understand life is very much through your body. Like, it's your body will be your greatest teacher, whether that's through illness and injury, or whether that's through you going through, becoming an athlete, or somehow it feels like everything, the whole universe, the whole cosmos is available to you through your relationship with the physical and with your body. And the gift of that is generally that for you, action is quite easy. It's easy for you to make your vision like a reality, because for you, it's only really real once you've touched it. And therefore for you, there's generally a certain urgency to kind of bring things into being, into manifestation through action and through touching, through feeling, through engaging in that way, which is fantastic. And maybe the spiritual is your home place. And if so, then there is it's a sensing, like you're understanding everything from maybe a bigger picture perspective, and it's about the energies that you're sensing in all of life around you. And it's your connection to the essence of, like, why is something here? What is its higher nature and purpose? It's that connection to the beyond, if you want, through which you understand everything. And ultimately, like, no matter what your home place is, that means, whatever you've come in already with a high level of mastery as your primary skill, to lead a satisfying life for true happiness, we actually need to develop all of those aspects, ideally fairly equally. because a life which just has clarity but lacks intimate connection is a life that's what I would call safely unhappy. That's certainly how it was for me when I was in my teens, and I always kind of say I was just a head, disconnected from all other aspects of myself. Yeah, and or if you are just connected to your emotions, but you lack clarity, you lack the ability to move that into action, or you lack an understanding, like the looking beyond and seeing the why this is all happening, how it all makes sense for a higher plan. That can be an incredibly volatile experience, where being so intimate with life without that clarity and without an outlet of action can feel really overwhelming. So I hope you're understanding how this idea of assembling ourselves and growing all those different aspects inside of ourselves is crucial. And so what does this have to do with relationship? Well, in truth, it's we have a relationship with each of these aspects inside of ourselves. And that relationship can be a strong relationship of like a home place, or maybe an ally that we've acquired, or it can be a relationship of suspicion and that of a stranger, or and the question is, how much do we trust? How much do we trust in each of these different aspects of ourselves? So again, I will use my own example. For me, I've always trusted my mind, my mental capacity. I have 100% faith that no matter what problem I'm in, no matter what situation I'm faced with, I will absolutely, my mind will find a solution. I have no doubt about this. So this is what I mean with this relationship of trust. Now, my ex-partner, he had that connection to the physical. That was his home place. And he was understanding everything in his life about, through that. So he was a bodybuilder. He had his own fitness studio. And for him, it became so apparent, like the way he walked down a hill, he didn't give this another thought. He trusted that his body would find a way for him to be okay. Like he would, scale up mountains, and he would do the kinds of things that would terrify me. Because for me, that is the area that I've had the lowest level of trust in. And he would just be able to do these things because he started with having this incredible amount of trust in the capability and the resilience of his body to just somehow manage whatever it was that was coming and that was happening. And this level of trust, it's a really beautiful feeling, because ultimately we can only really allow something into our life to the extent that we trust it. And how can we increase the trust? How can we improve the relationship to maybe some of those aspects that are not as strong for us? And why is that important to do it? Well, it's important because normally what we tend to do is we tend to continue to build on our strongest aspect. So that means, if you're in the spiritual, you will continue to do energetic healing, you'll continue to work with energies, you will go deeper into meditation and do more of that, but it means you keep building on top of the highest tower. And if you've ever seen a city where everything is just one story, and then suddenly there's this 50 story tower, it's unbalanced. It doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. But we do this because this is the aspect of ourselves we trust the most. And that's therefore the aspect of ourselves that we're willing to be challenged with the most. And the real magic is starting to happen because it's through challenge that we actually grow the trust into those different aspects. And it's truly magical when rather than continuing to challenge ourselves in our highest, in our strongest aspects, we actually start to introduce challenge gradually in our weakest, least developed, least trusted aspect. Because suddenly we're investing energy, but because that's so low, like suddenly this is where we will see massive progress. And as we are turning a former, you would say a former stranger or a former aspect we didn't trust into a trusted ally, suddenly our whole level of strength and resilience and shining in what we can achieve and accomplish in the world is just exponentially raised. Much more so than if we spent the same amount of time, investing in and growing our highest or other higher aspects in ourselves. And so for me, I started out with the mental, and then I went to grow the spiritual. And I understood this, like, how does this make sense? And why does this work? And how does this actually feel in my body? And why is this working? But for me, picking up the spiritual and growing that was quite easy. And I did this through energy healing and doing Reiki courses in my teens and starting to see energies. And so that was coming along quite nicely. Then picking up and developing the emotional, that was much more a stretch for me personally, because if the mind is your home place, actually this volatility, this unpredictability of the emotions is actually quite scary. It looks quite terrifying. And for me, I always had this feeling that deep inside me was this volcano that was unpredictable, that I didn't know, I couldn't trust, because I hadn't really spent much time getting to know it. And I thought if I really go deeply into my emotions, it would kill me. Completely irrational. So even if the mind is your home place, you can still be irrational in your fears. Fears are generally, frequently irrational. But nonetheless, that was how it felt for me. And so I created these incredible defense mechanisms, these incredible protective mechanisms where I put myself into a very safe place where I didn't really take many risks emotionally. And, I was, as I said, safely unhappy. But then life conspired in an incredible way, and I got thrown through a particular situation into a level of grief through a loss that I couldn't have predicted or defended against. And what I experienced there was actually the most beautiful and powerful gift. And that gift was that when I was struck with this grief and I was there lying, sobbing my heart out, grieving, the greatest surprise occurred to me that actually what I was feeling within this crying, within this weeping, was peace. And nothing could have shocked me more. Like I wasn't being torn to pieces. It was me allowing the flow through myself and allowing this to come through me and be expressed was actually making me feel better. It was healing me. There was a peace. It was like I was in the eye of the storm and all of the emotions were just flowing through me. And there was something quite beautiful and peaceful and just sacred in that being in that flow. And I was just so shocked by that experience. But it was in that moment, through that experience, that I developed trust in my emotions, that I realized that they weren't going to kill me, that I realized that actually it was when I was resisting, when I was holding it down, when I was pushing it back, when I was trying to control that, that's when I was feeling pain. That's when I was feeling fear. So it was the resistance against it rather than the emotion itself that was creating the pain. And in that one moment where I had that experience, that fear of my emotions vanished, and it was possible for me to create a very different relationship. And it's only when we befriend our emotions, when we integrate this as our ally, that we can really start to navigate our lives in the direction of happiness and satisfaction. Because happiness is an emotion. So if we are disconnected from our emotions, we're disconnected from our guidance system. Our guidance system that lets us know which way lies happiness, which way lies satisfaction, which way lies joy. And so life, that was for me in my early 20s that happened. And life became very different. And it was right then when I got my emotions piece integrated that I changed my life drastically. Because suddenly, you know, before I'd made decisions based on what made the most sense. It was almost like, well, I don't know what makes me happy. I have no way of knowing what makes me happy. So I might as well sell myself to the highest bidder. So I went into business, I went into management consulting, and I was good at that and I was well paid. But somehow I knew I was just not happy. I just didn't know. I just didn't really understand like where happiness would lie. But then once I got access to my emotions, suddenly it was like, wow, now I can feel. Now suddenly my compass is working. And it was in that moment that I laid down this old career and I embarked on a completely different journey, training as a psychotherapist and discovering my life purpose, which is to really up-level the relational paradigm of our time by empowering men and women to step into their shining and their beauty and to show up for each other in a way that works to create something magical together. And you know what? It's not comparable. It's not comparable how life is. The more aspects of yourself you have, the more whole your life becomes, and the more satisfying your life becomes, and the more resilient you will be. And then for me, the next piece to integrate was my sexuality. So I went onto a journey where, you know, I went very deeply into this area and taught about this and trained as a tantra teacher and worked with couples and worked with individuals and worked in lots of different explorations in my own connections to really open this up for myself and to understand how could this life force, this way of connecting with life and another intimately and passionately, how can that be beautiful and co-empowering and joyful? And again, it was an area of myself I didn't trust before. I'd seen other people who, you know, had enjoyed their sexuality a lot, who were in relationships and were stuck in relationships that ultimately, to me, looked very unhealthy. And so I kind of judged that aspect of myself and cut that off. And yet, as I was starting to go into it and again explore that, I was starting to open and realize that actually there was a lot of joy to be found by allowing that level of aliveness in my body. And again, like, life became richer, my relationships became richer, I was more in my center, and I assembled another piece of myself. And none of those pieces that you assemble are necessarily done and dusted. You'll still continue to grow them, and life will still bring you opportunities to continue to grow them. But it's like, you know, if you think of, you know, a percentage kind of scale, like, you know, from 0 to 100, like, you know, how much do you have that assembled? And it's like, you know, a few of us are at 100% with all of those. We're all like on our journey, and wherever we are is perfect. Like, there's something, like, you are exactly where you're meant to be. And if you're not enjoying where you are, it means that there's certain parts of yourself that you haven't yet assembled to the level that allow you to kind of create and attract and magnetize the life you want and the connections you want towards yourself. That's it. And that for me is really a message of empowerment and of freedom and free will, because it means that if you don't like the way that certain aspects of your life are, it's you don't need to be waiting for anything to come to you from the outside. You can actually go, and by working on and improving the relationship you have with a different aspect of yourself, you can actually change your whole field. And as you change your whole field, you also, what you attract and draw towards you also changes. What's possible in your life also changes. And so that, for me, is a very empowering thought. And so then, for me, my last resort, it was the physical, the kind of the physical body, the physicality. It was the aspect of myself I trusted the least. Like, I've learned to trust those other aspects of myself and understood how to connect to them in a nurturing and nourishing way, and how to have a co-empowering relationship with my body. It was a bit like, I don't know, it felt like, you know, like there were some issues I had with my back, and, you know, it's like I was carrying some extra weight, and it just felt like, you know, when I saw my ex-partner walk down a hill, it's like without a thought. And for me, it's careful step by careful step, always afraid that maybe I would fall, maybe I would trip, maybe, you know, maybe like one of my ankles would give way, or whatever it was. It was, again, irrational, but it was just a reflection of the relationship of trust that I had with my body. And so that was my lowest, and the most transformative thing, and I've done so many things, so many courses, so many healing modalities, so many things I've learned over the years that have been powerful and incredible. But one of the most powerful things I've done has actually been a physical practice. It's, you know, it's now been 7 weeks ago since I recorded this video that I started a running practice. Using a free podcast program called Couch to 5K, which is in the UK, provided by the NHS, the National Health Service. And it is incredible. Like, in the first week of it, you run for 60 seconds, and then you walk for 90 seconds, and you repeat that for like 8 times. And then the week after, you run for 90 seconds, and you walk for like, you know, 2 minutes, and then you repeat that for a number of times. And so each week you kind of gradually work your way up. And now, like week 8 actually I am. In week 8 now, suddenly you're running for 28 minutes without stopping. So from 60 seconds to 28 minutes. And in 8 weeks. And when I started, the minutes seemed like ambitious. And the idea of being able to run for 30 minutes, which is what's happening at the end of the training, was like, I mean, do you know what? I don't think it's going to happen for me. But I did, and every week my body was getting stronger. But the most profound thing was that as I was doing this practice, I was really talking and tuning into my body. And I was starting to create that relationship and tuning into what it needed, and realizing actually that my body has been incredibly strong and resilient and amazing. And so, like, it was like for me, through this, like, falling in love with my body, which had actually, with, you know, the very little I'd actually given it, and the many challenges I'd given to my body, which had actually done admirably in somehow making it work. And just the amount of appreciation that I feel now, and the amount of trust I have in my body now, which has happened because I've set little challenges which have gradually increased, because it's through the challenges that we master that we develop trust in something. And that's with any relationship. It's when a friend of yours, you know, shows up for you when you're in a time of need, you will trust this friend more, and you'll be more willing to share more of yourself with that friend. And that's true in the outside world, but it's also true in the inside world. So my invitation to you is just to, you know, to take a moment, maybe right now, maybe close your eyes, and just sense into yourself. And just feel and maybe put a hand on your womb space, because that's a place of deep knowing inside ourselves. Take a couple of deep breaths into that womb space, and then just send a question there. Which is my home place? Which is my strongest aspect? And allow the answer to come back to you almost like an echo. So sending the question like a sonar into the womb and allowing the answer just to come back to you. It might come to you as a color, as a feeling, as a sound, as an idea, like however it comes to you is perfect. And then send another question. Which is the area of my life and the area of my being that most needs my attention and most needs my effort to connect with it right now? And again, letting that answer come back to you like an echo. And then when you have these answers, then my invitation to you is to find a way to find just small, measurable challenges for you in that area that is your weakest area, the one that you trust the least. You know, like in the physical for me, this very manageable Couch to 5K program where you start with 60 seconds running and then you build up to 30 minutes running. Like, what could be the equivalent of that in the emotional, in the mental, in the physical, in the spiritual? And just spend some of this time that you have right now just to create little challenges. And as you're mastering those challenges, what you'll notice is that that aspect will go up, and your overall level of resilience and satisfaction with life and your overall feeling of yourself will increase massively. Anything that you invest there will be the most profound outcome, because that's where even like a very small effort bears an incredible amount of fruit. And it's through creating these better relationships with ourselves that ultimately we can assemble ourselves into wholeness. So this was about the relationships that we hold inside of ourselves, but I also want to say a little bit about the relationships we have with those around us, with the people that are around us, and even our businesses, you know, people and entities that are around us. It's every person, every being, your business, whatever you engage with is a mirror for you. Is a mirror that ultimately is showing you a reflection of beliefs that you hold about yourself. It's also often a mirror or a messenger that shows you which areas of your life are not yet in balance, are not yet healed. And that's not from a place of making you wrong or making you feel bad. It's actually, we're drawing these people towards ourselves that are challenging us because, you know, it comes from a place of self-love. Because it's when we're bringing those people that show us where we are still holding wounds, where we're not yet in wholeness, it gives us the chance with our awareness to go into this and to heal this. So to kind of reclaim that cut off, you know, disconnected, maybe slightly, not dead, but like low on life force part, and to reclaim that and integrate it back into our being. And when we see that every person that comes into our life is a teacher, is a messenger, is a mirror, that means that every person that comes into your life holds a gift. And if the person comes to you in a very negative way, so let's say maybe it's it's an abusive partner, very negative, very critical boss, you know, then sometimes the gift in there is that it's at some point you will not accept that anymore. And it's that when you no longer accept this, it means that your self-worth, your level of self-love has gotten high enough for you to say, actually, that's not working for me. Actually, that's not good enough. And so the gift that some of those more challenging people bring to us is that they put us in touch with our boundaries, with our requirements, with our needs. And they give us an opportunity to really connect with a place of self-worth. Because that's what we need to kind of stop those relationships. It's only when we know that we deserve better than what we receive that we're able to let that go. And so, what is interesting with this, so it's self-love and self-care that is absolutely crucial in what are the kinds of relationships you will allow yourself in your life. And there's an interesting way, like a lot of people say, well, you know, like when I love myself more, I will do more for myself. And, you know, maybe that's true, but it's actually, interesting enough, a two-way street. So because what your mind is trying to do, your mind is always trying to make you right. So if you are treating yourself like, you know, if you're treating yourself, you're talking to yourself as though you are worthless, your mind is going to come up with all kinds of beliefs that are going to justify that. Saying, yeah, you can't do this, and you can't do this, and you failed at this. And it's your mind will somehow find a way to justify your actions. If, however, you treat yourself like a goddess, like your mind will also find ways to create beliefs that make you right. Like it's incredibly difficult to think of yourself as worthless and terrible if you're treating yourself with an incredible amount of loving care and admiration and self-love. And so this is the shortcut, actually. The shortcut is to, you know, to change some of our beliefs and to integrate this into our lives in a way that it makes a measurable difference, is to act differently towards ourselves. And our beliefs often will follow like that. We can change our beliefs, and that might not actually translate by itself into changed action, because the physical is the densest. So therefore, it takes a little bit of time, it takes a little bit more to go into that densest area. Beliefs are held often in the mind, so that's quite, you know, the element of air is much more fluid. So, but if we're changing our actions, our behavior, it means we're changing what we're doing in the body, that actually will have ripple effects to all of those other aspects. And it will change the way you feel about yourself. It will change the way that you think about yourself. And it will change the way you make sense of the world at large. So that's the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So my invitation to you is that just for the next week, as an experiment, or if a week seems too long, just for the next day, or if that's too much, even just for the next hour, or for the next 10 minutes, just treat yourself like you are a goddess. You know, for me, one of the things I do with that is I do a beautiful bathing ritual where I run some hot water, I put in some Himalayan salt and some Epsom salts, and I light candles for myself. I have music I love, that I enjoy, that is beautiful to me. And I put some essential oils in there, so all of my senses are catered to and delighted. And I just kind of bless that water with, you know, whatever it is that you'd like to invoke. Like you can call to the elements or to some goddesses, if that's what you relate to, or you can just kind of just thank the water for being there and ask it to support you. And then just going into that and just letting yourself enjoy the things that you love. Maybe you even have a beautiful piece of chocolate or a lovely piece of fruit there, just to kind of delight your senses and really take excellent care of yourself. And then when you're done, when you get out of the bath, then taking some lotion and really caressing your skin with that lotion. Not just kind of like, rubbing it on and like, here it is. But like, like how would you apply lotion to your most perfect beloved? To the man or woman of your dreams? Like the woman or the being or the man that you've been longing to touch for the longest time. Like how would you touch them? And allow yourself to be touched like that and touch yourself like that from that place of love and appreciation and cherishing. And that act, if you're able to do this in a way that you're not just going through the motions, but you really are tuning into this feeling and you're able to do this for yourself, it's one of the single most healing things you can do for yourself, is loving action for yourself. And it's when you are changing that relationship towards yourself, so when you are treating yourself with more self-love, and therefore your self-concept and your self-deservement and your self-worth is rising, also the quality of your relationships and the people that you attract will rise, because you simply won't settle anymore for relationships which just deplete you or relationships which don't serve you. And that's why there is this kind of the saying is that you can't really, people will only be able to kind of fall in love with you when you fall in love with yourself. And that to me always used to sound a little bit like a platitude, but in this process that I've shared with you of like, how do we actually do this? How do we actually act lovingly towards ourselves? How do we change this? It's what you're doing is you're literally going straight to the core of your essence, and you're changing your feelings of self-worth. And with that, you change what you're expecting, what you're requiring, and therefore you change what you allow yourself to receive. Because only what you allow yourself to receive can come into your life. So if you have really negative thoughts or a low self-esteem, you will only allow yourself very poor relationships in your life, which will drain you and which won't contribute very much to your life. And so therefore, that's my invitation. Like maybe you're still in lockdown, maybe you're not, but it's like this extra time that we have. It's spending that to improve the connections we have with the aspects of ourselves is actually one of the most incredible investments we can make to improve our well-being, our sense of wholeness, but also the relationships that are all around us. And when you are doing this, then it is much easier to actually get in touch with, well, what do I actually need in relationships? What are my requirements? What do I need from other to thrive? Rather than just what can I give to other for them to thrive, it becomes a more mutual win-win philosophy. Like it becomes more of a balanced give and take. And that's what co-empowering relationships are designed to be. It's a beautiful relationship of sharing where no one is depleted, where no self-sacrifice is required, but where instead we're sharing from a place of being so nourished because we've learned how to nourish ourselves, that we can then share from that place of surplus. And we can also, our self-concepts and our self-worth is so high that we can allow ourselves to truly receive from another. And when we can allow ourselves to receive from another, now then a very different way of relating becomes possible. So I hope you found this session inspiring and useful, and I hope you are inspired to try some of these practices, to get curious about how you can work with some of your weaker areas, the less developed areas, and how through loving kindness practice towards yourself, you can raise your self-worth, your self-deservement, and you can completely change and transform your entire world and relational experience. This is my wish for you from my heart, that you will take whatever step, however small, however shaky it may be, a little step every day to walk in that direction towards better self-care and more self-deservement. Because let me tell you, sister, you are perfect and beautiful and gorgeous, and you are here with a set of gifts and abilities and a perspective unlike anyone else. The world cannot replace your shining. Your light is needed to contribute to the whole. That's what we need to assemble the world in the way that we want to see it, is we need to assemble all of ourselves, and then we can create a world and relationships that will match that. So please take a step every day towards this, and I hope you will enjoy the other sessions on this incredible summit, and allow yourself to receive from many of these other incredible experts that will really teach you how to take better care of your body, how to take better care of your mind, of your emotions, of your spirit. These words, I just send you blessings and offer you a namaste, which means the divine in me bows to the divine in you. May you see the sacred in yourself, in your beloveds, and in every single experience of your life, so that you may thrive through whatever gifts and challenges life brings your way.